Heather. Welcome back to our channel. I am starting my day of my daily border crossing. So hopefully soon I'll have a mount that I can actually show you the frontward view as I'm driving, but I'm just going to get some snippets here and there just so that you guys can kind of see what the day entails. But I will start recording as soon as I have the correct mount. I'll start recording the actual crossing just so you can see what it's like day in and day out. You know, when I first started doing this crossing, I mean, take it back and really look at it. I've been doing this for 6 years. It's just become a way of life for me. I don't really think anything about it. I know for some people, you know, just the thought of spending that much time in your day commuting back and forth. I mean, there are a lot of people that do it like living in the big cities, just because traffic's so heavy. So I don't really see my commute is much different than that. It's very heavy on one side of crossing the border and not so heavy coming back usually, depending on what time I cross back. But yeah, this is my life. So it is 9:15 roughly when I left the house. I am not actually scheduled to work till like 1 o'clock today. I usually leave the house about 4 hours prior to my shift. No, I'm sorry. I get going about 4 hours prior to my shift. Usually I leave the house about 3 hours before I work. And that allows me usually a half hour to 45 minutes to get to the border. Usually it takes me the 45 minutes to get to the border just because of the time I'm driving. Like right now it's 9 o'clock. There will be quite a bit of traffic. So yeah, it takes me about 45 minutes to get to the border. And sorry, I'm driving at the same time. And then once I'm at the border, I mean, on a good day, I could be across in 20 minutes. On a very average day, 45 minutes to an hour and a half. On a not so average day, we're looking at maybe, I don't know, sometimes like 2 hours, 3 hours. That's definitely what to expect and to plan for on a Monday. Every Monday is that way. And then we have the absolute crazy days, which is like very far and few in between. I did have a day, oh gosh, right when this COVID stuff really started happening, that took me 6 hours to cross. That was probably one of the crazy. The worst that I've experienced is about a 6-hour crossing. So if you think about it, my job, I work 10-hour shifts. So 6 hours in the line just to get across, to go to work for 10 hours and then to have to turn around and come back. I mean, sometimes, and my husband makes fun of me, and not really makes fun of me, but says like I have to have like a battery hooked into me somehow just to keep me going, because I have those days that literally I'm up and going for like 20 hours sometimes. But again, it's not all bad like that. There's just far and few. There are those days far and few in between that you will have those issues. You will have those days that it's not a fun crossing. You don't want to get up. You don't want to get ready. You don't want to get out of bed. There's days that I work morning shifts that just because of morning crossing sometimes, you know, ideally if you have a choice of 2 schedules or hours, don't take a 9-to-5 job, especially at the border crossing. That's the time when everyone's crossing. That's going to be the peak volume. That's going to be the highest volume crossing into San Diego. That's going to be the highest volume crossing back into Mexico, because everyone works the 9-to-5. So, you know, it's kind of nice to have those jobs that maybe your hours are a little bit varied, that you're working a night shift. I have days that I go into work I work 1 to 10, 1 to 11 shift, and it works out. It's way better. I don't have to deal with any traffic coming home at night. I don't have to deal with any cars and anything. I just literally drive home. And it takes me about 45 minutes from me leaving San Diego to my house, and my house is south of Rosarito. I'm not directly in the town, I'm just south of the town. But yeah, it takes me 45 minutes to get home. I go to work every day. I come home and I enjoy my time with family, and I don't really want to get involved in anything I don't want to be involved in. So it's just way easier to just kind of mind my business. I stay away from the street when it's dark out. But I'll head this way as soon as 6:30 in the morning. It's good to go. But anytime earlier than that, I won't. If I have an opening shift and I'm getting up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm not taking 2000. I will actually go out of my way and drive all the way through Rosarito to get onto the regular one. Some people, their choice is to take the toll road and go all the way up. That is absolutely the fastest to get to Tijuana, is taking the toll road. I did that for probably the first, year and a half, 2 years that I crossed. I took the toll road. So the problem with that is taking the toll road from Rosarito. If you're taking the standard regular crossing using your regular passport book, you don't have a passport card, that makes a lot of sense to take that toll road right on up. But again, the standard crossing typically is a little bit longer, not always. It's kind of, you never know where you're going to get. Sometimes you are headed towards you take the complete opposite road and head towards the ready lane, and when you're crossing over to get into the ready lane from that direction of Rosarito, you see that the regular crossing has no cars. Now keep in mind that even though the regular crossing has no cars in it, doesn't mean that it's not going to take you 45 minutes. The regular crossing is slower because the ready lane has electronic devices that you can actually hold your card up and process your information directly through this little device. And when you pull up to the booth at the border crossing, they already have your information. Where the passport card is not that way. And basically every single person in that vehicle, so if it's a car with 4 people in it, they have to manually process 4 passport books and get them into the system as to crossing the border. So it does take a little bit longer per car, typically, but sometimes the line is actually less. You just never know. So yeah, so today I'm going to go to Otay. I'm going to go cross into the standard crossing. The ready lane crossing. With that, the ready lane, technically you're only supposed to pass with passport cards. So my recommendation, if you're going through possible deportation, possible anything, definitely look at getting yourself a passport card versus a book. It all depends on where you're planning on being. If you're going to live your life at the border, all you really need, if you don't already have a passport, is a card. If you're looking that you're going to be flying throughout Mexico or flying internationally, you do need a passport book. So I personally have both. I started with just the book. Right before moving to Mexico, I decided to get the card as well. It does make it a lot easier just taking the ready lane. The ready lane typically does move a lot faster. Sometimes, though, it's the same or just as bad as the regular crossing. So you just never really know what you're going to get out of it. So here's my top 10 things to do when crossing the border every day. So obviously, as I just mentioned, make sure you get a passport card. It gives you flexibility. With that, you can cross in not any lane, because we can't use the Sentry, obviously, but there are 3 lanes available. That's the normal ready cross, or the normal standard crossing. There's the ready lane, and then there's the Sentry. So you can use your passport card in both the normal and the ready lane. So the second thing that I would say is number 2 as the top 10 things. Look into an app. There are a few apps. There's a couple pay sites. I know there's one. I'll look it up and try to see if I can link it in here. That you can pay. I believe it's like an annual fee or a monthly fee, and I don't think it's a lot. I think, and don't quote me, I think it's roughly like $4 a year or something like that, that you have access to the actual video cameras. There are some free cameras that you can see, but with those you actually can see the traffic. And then there's other apps that you can pay for as well that will give you more accurate as to like where the line is. There's a app that's run by the Border Patrol, not always 100% accurate, but pretty close. Sometimes it's really off. Like it will say 45 minutes and then you wait an hour and a half. So, and then keep in mind that, you know, if you're coming from a distance like me, I'm driving a half hour, 45 minutes to get to the crossing. The crossing times change drastically in that half hour to 45 minutes. It could go from a lot to nothing, or from nothing to a lot. So definitely having an app, just that you can pull that information. I could tell you, after crossing for 6 years now, I kind of know what to expect every day. There are some days that totally throw me for a loop, but I know that if it's a Monday, the crossing is going to be worse. The crossing is worse on a Monday because a lot of people come down for the weekend. A lot of people have weekend houses here. They're here on vacation for the weekend. They're coming down to the beach, whatever, and they decide that they're going to cross back on Monday versus crossing back on Sunday, so that they get 1 extra day of vacation. So Mondays are always a crazy day. Another thing, crossing back into Mexico, U.S. from Mexico, Fridays are always crazy as well, because that's everyone coming for the weekend. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I kind of know that if it's a holiday weekend, that Monday may be dead. There may be nobody in the crossing on Monday, and the bulk of the traffic may actually hit on Tuesday. So then you have to be prepared that Tuesday may be that busy day that you need to allow extra time. So it's all based on what's really happening. Is it a Mexican holiday, American holiday? That all affects the border traffic and the crossing. Yeah, so that's going to be tip number 2, is just really finding an app and finding a way to learn the schedule and the expectations. Anyone that's been doing this for a long time of doing these crossings, I could pretty much tell you what to expect on certain days. Now, what to expect and the reality, it could be completely different. I've had a day that the border crossing was absolutely nothing, and you get in line, and then, you know, you just happen to get behind the car that they're doing a drug search on. And that 30-minute, 40-minute crossing is now an hour and a half, just because you got behind the wrong car. So it does happen.